This week in Texas, we get educated on the changes in HISD as the district entered its first full week under state control.
Look, it's not the type of school that matters, it's the type of system that matters.
You'll hear from the new superintendent, Mike Miles, in a one-on-one interview with ABC 13's Shannon Ryan. And we look at the newly announced leadership, who will make up Miles' cabinet. Plus, Miles' state certification and why he won't seek to reinstate it. While HISD retools over the summer break, there is no rest for the state legislature, where Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick challenged Governor Greg Abbott to a debate over property taxes. We dive into the differing plans to save you money.
So I'm not arguing with the governor. We'll go on and fight another day.
And we sit down with former state senator and current U.S. Representative Sylvia Garcia from Texas's 29th Congressional District to get her perspective from Capitol Hill on a new episode of This Week in Texas. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Texas. I'm Tom Abrams. HISD is now under state control, and the person leading the state's largest school district is newly appointed Superintendent Mike Miles. He was booed loudly during the first meeting with the new state-appointed school board Thursday night. Managers approved his interim contract, paying him roughly $1,500 per day. This week, Miles sat down with ABC 13's Shannon Ryan for an in-depth conversation about his plans for the district.
There are things that we are doing today. There are systems that are already in place, practices that we're doing as educators that we know need to be changed. But it's hard to change because they're tied to the status quo and people are invested in the status quo. So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to make some changes that go against the status quo. And that's tough for people, naturally so. So that's what it means to me.
Can you give me examples of some of those changes?
So, for example, we have to prioritize resources. That doesn't mean, and by that I mean, not every school has the same need. And we have some schools that are underserved and under-resourced in a large district. And so we're going to have to make sure that we provide supports and resources for our most underserved and high priority needs schools. And that we haven't done, HISD, we have not done a good job with that over the years.
Will you be seeking partnerships with charter organizations? Obviously you have a background with charter schools.
I have a background also with traditional public schools, actually, which is way more extensive. Look, it's not the type of school that matters, it's the type of system that matters. So the job that I have right now is to make sure every school in this district currently has a great education. So no, I will not be bringing in charter schools immediately. I'm never going to rule out totally. I don't know what will happen 3 or 4 years from now, but I don't have any plans on bringing in a charter more than what we already have.
So when you first started in Dallas, you sort of cleaned house a bit. Principals, other administrators that you found to be low performing, you did oust. Can we expect to see that here? Will some people be losing their jobs soon?
So it's June, and it would not be fair to move out principals without evaluation or move out teachers without evaluation. So we're not going to do that. But what you can probably gather from my background and my past experiences, we're going to look at the quality of instruction. We're going to look at what makes an effective principal, what makes an effective teacher. And then we're going to train people, support people, and assess them based on those criteria. And at the end of the day, we're going to expect proficiency or greater, or near proficiency, in order to have a job here in HISD.
I'm glad that you brought up evaluation. You're sort of known for that pay for performance plan. HISD, as I'm sure you're well aware, is overhauling how they do evaluations, pay for performance. So just talk about your history with that, and how you'll support the ongoing efforts to implement change, and anything else that you would like to see contribute to that.
So let me say first, HISD is not Dallas. Dallas is not HISD, and there's different contexts. So I want to make sure people understand that I get that difference too. At the same time, they're both large urban districts, so there are some things to compare. We put in the largest pay-for-performance plan in the nation in Dallas. In March of this year, the National Bureau of Economic Research confirmed what many other analyses have confirmed, that the pay-for-performance system has been great for kids in Dallas and achievement over the long haul, and continues to get gains for Dallas. As a result, Dallas is above Houston with regard to overall achievement and the growth of achievement. So I have lots of experience doing that. I also did that, put in a pay-for-performance system in Harrison School District in Colorado Springs, where I was superintendent before Dallas. So yes, we're going to put in a pay-for-performance system in Houston, the one that makes sense for Houston. We'll start with principals first, and we'll have an evaluation system that's rigorous starting on day one. Teachers will start the second year.
Okay.
Teacher evaluation.
Can you break down for principals and teachers how it'll work?
Yeah, it's like a 60-page document, but let me,
Can you give us the Spark Notes version?
Yeah,
I've got a lot of other questions.
I'll give you 3 bullets or so. So, look, it's based on setting clear expectations and criteria for what an effective principal is. Let's start there, right? So, an effective principal, there are 4 big areas for this year. Achievement results. If you can't get outcomes, that's not the most effective principal. So achievement results is bucket number 1, 35%. 30% is the quality of instruction. Those of us who've been educators for a while know that the number 1 variable and a leading indicator is how well the quality of instruction in your classrooms are. So we're going to look at the quality of instruction as a second bucket. That's 30%. Then we're going to look at the action plan. The goals and metrics you set for the actions you're going to do, the key actions you're going to do this year that are tied to the district priorities. So we're not closing any schools this year. We're not closing any schools mid-year. We are going to study this year what has already been done and what has already been proposed, and we'll tweak it, we'll make it make sense. But there are probably going to be some school closures down the road. It doesn't make any sense for a school that is, has an 800 student body capacity, but only has 137 kids. That's not good for the kids, by the way, so we're going to make sure that all of our kids have the best education and best schools possible, and we're not just going to close schools willy-nilly. But nothing will close this year. We're going to look and make sure that we make sense for our parents and communities.
Also this week, we learn the names of the people who will help implement Miles' vision at the highest level. Chaz Miller has that part of the story from our newsroom.
The HISD said that this is the first in a series of leadership announcements for the district. 10 new cabinet members. 5 of them have had some sort of tie to HISD, either in the previous administration or in their past. 5 do not, and we found a few that actually have worked for Miles directly in their previous employment history. So let's start with this. Who were the 3 holdovers from the previous HISD administration? One is Scott Gilhousen, who's in charge of technology. One is Katasha Woods, General Counsel, and Chief Operations Officer Wanda Paul. She worked with Miles when he was the superintendent in Dallas, as Tom had just mentioned. You might remember multiple HISD leaders quit after news of the takeover in March, including the police chief and outgoing chief of schools, Denise Watt. She is primed to become the superintendent in Savannah, Georgia. So let's show you 2 people who are on the new cabinet, but had also worked for HISD in the past. One is Orlando Riddick. He's a division superintendent who, according to his LinkedIn page, was with the district from 2012 to 2014. Imelda de la Guardia is also a division superintendent now who works in Spring and Spring Branch ISD, but it also worked in HISD. So of the 5, we have found 2, not including Wanda Paul, who have previous direct ties with new superintendent Mike Miles. You see, Mike Miles had founded a network of charter schools called Third Future Schools Network. So the new chief of finance at HISD, Jim Terry, worked at Third Future, which is the chain of charter schools Miles started. He also worked for the Texas Education Agency before coming to HISD. Terry, in fact, even wrote a book detailing how Miles changed teacher pay in Dallas. Sandy Massey, also with Third Future School Network, she said that coming to HISD is her professional highlight. She said she's excited to get started. As I mentioned, guys, HISD said this is just the first in a series of leadership changes for the district, so we'll continue to keep an eye on what comes next as the district faces all these changes. We did ask HISD about the salary for these 10 individuals. In addition to the hiring process, they did not get back to us.
Also this week, we learned that Miles does not have a current superintendent certification in the state of Texas. It went inactive in 2018 after Miles left Dallas ISD as superintendent there. Screenshots of his inactive certification were all over social media. But he does not need it to be the leader of the state's largest school district after the state takeover on June 1st. I spoke with Miles on the phone, and he told me the district will seek a waiver from the TEA if it has not already. And the TEA told ABC 13 that if a certification waiver is needed for the Houston ISD superintendent, it will be granted as it is for any other school system. In the case of Superintendent Miles, he has already successfully led a Texas ISD and Texas public charter schools. Certification requirements are meant to establish minimum training needs, and he has already surpassed any competencies addressed by the certification. Now, Miles said that though the piece of paper is not unimportant, more important than that is getting outcomes. It's the ability to lead, to have a vision, and to make the tough decisions others won't make. Miles is no doubt qualified. He graduated from West Point in 1978. He has additional degrees from the University of California at Berkeley and Columbia University. Before entering education, he worked in the U.S. Department of State. It is not unusual for districts to seek waivers for their superintendents. It has happened 40 times since 2009, most recently in Alief just last year. When we come back, we'll head to Austin and the fight over how best to lower property taxes across the state of Texas. One of the legislative priorities for both the Texas House and Senate this session was lowering property taxes, but they did not get it done during the regular session. So the governor, Greg Abbott, called a special session to bridge the gap between the Senate and House plans. Here's Nick Notario's report as that session got underway.
In Austin, both the Senate and House agree property tax relief should go to homeowners, but the two sides can't agree on how to do it.
I can't debate bad math. They never brought us any numbers in the entire time of the session.
To figure it out, a special session was called this week, but it appears there won't be any debate. After passing its property tax relief bill yesterday, House members left Austin.
Is there objection? The chair hears none. The House stands adjourned and signing die pending the receipt of messages, signing of bills and resolutions, and completion of administrative tasks.
It was different in the Senate. They agreed to come back Friday. But without a compromise, it appears a second special session will be needed to figure out property taxes.
I think it's more disruptive, and it's more a reflection of a lack of competence, because for Republicans, one of the top priorities this legislative session, if not the top priority, was property tax relief.
The issue is over a homestead exemption. The Senate wants to increase the amount homeowners receive. The House wants to cut tax rates for both homeowners and business owners. That's the plan Governor Greg Abbott supports. However, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says the Senate plan saves homeowners $700 more per year.
If Joe Biden and Kevin McCarthy, a Democrat and Republican, can come to an agreement to lift the debt ceiling in Washington, certainly 3 Republicans in Texas should be able to come into agreement about property tax relief.
So far, though, there doesn't appear to be any agreement, although Patrick is hopeful.
And I believe in my heart that the governor will support homestead exemptions. And I believe that the House will, because they already voted unanimously for homestead exemptions.
Now move to this week. Still no resolution. Tuesday, the lieutenant governor challenged the governor to a debate over property taxes. He said during a press conference that he was not there to argue with the governor or Speaker of the House, both of whom backed that plan, which differs from the Senate. But he did lay out why the Senate's proposal is better and then offered the debate.
So I'm not arguing with the governor. We'll go on and fight another day, and we'll be aligned more likely than we're not. The same way with the House. But we're not going to back up on this. And if the governor disagrees, then I'm open next Monday and Tuesday to a Lincoln Douglas debate. 45 minutes ought to get it done.
So what are the House plans exactly? Well, the House would lower property tax rates for school districts across the state. That would save every property owner money by what's called compression. The Senate plan takes a less aggressive approach to compression, but increases the homestead exemption from $40,000 to $100,000. Senator Paul Betancourt authored that legislation.
So the Senate's plan, Texas two-step, gives a lot more savings for the average homeowner, and that's 5.72 million homeowners across the state.
Will, Senator Parker.
The governor also commented about property taxes at a press conference and bill signing on another matter, but he would not say he'll support increased homestead exemption or if he would debate Patrick. The governor also said he would call special session after special session if need be.
When it comes to property taxes, what really needs to be done is to focus on reaching an agreement between the House and Senate. And the only thing we're going to focus on this session and successive sessions is making sure we pass property taxes. The good news is we've already agreed to the amount, which is historic.
Speaker Dade Phelan also responded to the lieutenant governor, and his office sent us a statement which read the Texas Senate is the only chamber that has not passed property tax reform and border security legislation in a way that is germane to Governor Abbott's special session call. The House has passed the largest property tax cut in state history 3 times this year. In the special session, the House came to work, passed its bills with bipartisan support, and adjourned. The Senate is keeping Texans waiting. We encourage the Senate to follow the House's lead so that Texans can have the property tax relief and the secure border they deserve. Well, from the state capitol to Capitol Hill, when we come back, a conversation with Representative Sylvia Garcia. Welcome back to This Week in Texas. I'm joined now by a representative from Texas's 29th Congressional District, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I know there are a lot of issues you want to talk about, but let's start talking about trains. I know throughout Southeast Texas, particularly in Houston, there is an issue with trains and traffic and safety.
Well, there is, and especially in my district, as you know, I'm the one that has the greater part of the Port of Houston, where all the ship channel is, where all the docks are, the warehouses. It's a lot of cargo coming through back and forth, and we just have not only more trains, over 200 a day, but they're longer trains because of the supply chain issues and the number of the demands. They're just putting more and more, little cart thingies, I forget what they call them right now,
sure,
on the train. So sometimes they'll block not just 1 block, 2 blocks, sometimes 3, because some of them are really getting into being just very long.
And so what do you do about it?
Well, the concern, of course, is safety. We're finding children climbing under trains to get to school. We're hearing from Chief Pena that more and more ambulances and fire trucks are being delayed because they've got to find detours. And when you come to EMS and fire trucks, I mean, seconds matter. Police officers are sometimes having to detour. So we've done 2 things. Number one is we got the FRA administrator, who's the Federal Railroad Administrator. He's the guy that oversees all the operations of trains in terms of in Washington, in the country. We got him down here for 2 town hall meetings, and we had people directly tell him stories about the delays. And so he came down twice, and he promised to help us. And we got $36 million grant to work on several overpasses to get those trains away from the traffic so that traffic can go over the railroad tracks. So we're trying to get more dollars to do that. And then secondly, we have filed a bill. It's called the Deep Block Act, so that we can put an end to the stalling of the trains for more than 10 minutes that block that traffic. And if they do stay there longer than 10 minutes, that they can be assessed a fine. As you saw in Ohio in that derailment, if the tracks are being blocked, if the tracks have any issues, it can have serious injury and damage. And of course, every time I see a picture of children going underneath trains just to get to school, it's a heartbreaker.
And so you see this at least being a down payment, this $36 million, to get the ball rolling.
Let's be clear, this is just the beginning. I've already submitted another list of 3 more that I'm going to start working on. Because again, especially in the East End, in the Galena Park, Sando City area, that whole area in and around the Port of Houston where all the trains go to deliver the goods, it's becoming a real problem. I mean, we've got stories. We are now #1 in the country for complaints of railroad crossings. #1 in the whole country, because that's how bad it's gotten in parts of East Harris County. So it's a big problem, and it's causing some serious concerns for many of us in our communities.
Do you have bipartisan support for the legislation that would fine rail companies should they stall for longer than 10 minutes at an intersection?
Mine doesn't yet, because we just filed it about a couple of months ago, and we're working on sponsors. But the entire Ohio delegation, bipartisan, has filed a bill in the Senate and also in the House to also address some of the safety concerns, higher fines, stiffer penalties for the railroads when it comes to the derailment issues, because of course they had that horrible accident up in Ohio, and then now we've seen what happened in India just last week. So I think trains are in people's minds, and I think we'll be able to get something done.
Let's talk about the Dream and Promise Act. You're the new sponsor of this bill. Tell us what it would do and what we can expect to hear from you later in the week.
Well, the Dream and Promise Act will continue to protect dreamers, and dreamers are generally described as the people, the young people, children who came here with their parents, and so through no fault of their own, they're here in our country, they've grown up here, they live here, they work here. In their heart and their soul and their mind, they're American. They know no other country. And of course, President Obama got a DACA order, and DACA just gave him time here without fear of deportation. And so it's called the DREAM Act. Americans support dreamers. We all know that we cannot blame children when they, through no fault of their own, they're here. And the bill will be filed this next week on Thursday, and it'll be bipartisan, and it will be to continue protecting our dreamers. Right now, the polls tell us that probably 80 to 85% of Americans believe in dreamers, and dreamers believe in America.
And do you see this being a permanent solution for dreamers, or is it just an extension of the Obama-era protection?
Well, it will be an extension of the protections, but hopefully it'll become permanent. And of course, this only applies to dreamers, which is the young people, and making sure that they have an opportunity to go to college, to be able to make sure they have an opportunity to work, and they can do all this without fear of deportation. But it doesn't touch any of the other larger issues of comprehensive immigration reform, which frankly we need to do too. But my bill seeks to look at and fix the dreamer issue to make sure that what we can agree on, we can get done.
It's a starting point.
It's a starting point, and certainly my dream would be to have comprehensive immigration reforms that we can keep all our families together. And that's a real concern for dreamers, because, while they want protections, they don't want to have to worry about their mom and dad or their grandmother or their aunt who's living with them. So someday we'll be able to pass comprehensive immigration reform. We just have to keep working on it.
Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, always good to see you.
Thank you.
And This Week in Texas, we'll be right back. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Texas. You can watch all of our previous episodes wherever you stream ABC 13 or on our website at abc13.com/thisweekintexas. For all of us here at ABC 13, have a great week and be kind to one another.